It's Art Studio. In today's project, we're going to turn an ordinary light switch cover into a work of art. So join me and see how we're going to do this. We're going to need our plate cover, and I'm just going to remove the screws now already, otherwise they're going to be gone very soon. We're going to need our design as well as the pewter we are going to use. Our painter's tape to adhere the design to the pewter, as well as a pencil to trace it. You don't necessarily have to use a pencil. You can also use your stylus or your Teflon tip tool for tracing. We're going to need some basic tools, again Teflon tip tools, a stylus, a couple of other tools. I'm going to use a 4 needle point tool to add a background to it, and I'm most probably going to use the micro dotted wheel to add some texture to the leaves. I'm not exactly sure. A roller, and at any time, you know, during the process, there's always 1 or 2 items that I don't mention in the beginning, but I always list them in the descriptions. There's always a list from all the tools and the supplies that I've used. So moving on, we're going to do faux patina for this project, so permanent water-based marker, and then again we're also going to use the paper towel to clean that. We're going to use Sookwang tape to adhere everything, and also our work surfaces that we usually need. I pulled out my alcohol inks, although I'm not sure if I am going to use color. I don't use a lot of color, but I'm having this up in front of me, and as I'm working I will be looking at this and see if I am going to use the alcohol inks to color in at the end. What I did was I took my paper, the cover, and I've just placed it down on the size of the pewter that I have, and I've measured that by just thinking, you know, I need to fold it over on all 4 sides, so leave enough to fold over, and then I've placed it down and I traced it with a pencil. I just went all around to make sure that I have it more or less the size. I've marked my cutout here for the switch, as well as the 2 dots where the screws need to go in, and that is how I got to the size of my pewter that I'm going to need. Okay, so next we are just going to tape this down, and I'm just putting it down. You can actually cut it slightly smaller as well, so that it can fit and you can actually see it or around, or you can see a little bit of your pewter around. I'm just going to go in like this, because by the time that I'm going to work onto the edges, I will have removed my design, so it's not really going to be in the way. So once this is secured, we are going to trace our design, and that is the same as what we always do. We come in on a paper pad. I've got a brand new paper pad because my other one really didn't cut it anymore. And like with everything else, we're just going to start from one side, and I am just going to trace the design onto the pewter. As always, just make sure that you can see it on the back. As I removed my design, I realized I've never traced the marks. Not that it really matter, because you will be able to see it to cut out, but just for while you embossing, it might be a good idea to have an indication of where you need to cut out. Okay, so problem solved. It is there. Okay, and now we are going to start with our embossing. I was going in 2 directions here to do embossing and leave this flat, or do a slight high relief with the flowers and put some wax in there. And I was debating on both sides, and then eventually I decided no, I am going to do a little bit of a high relief, and I will add detail to the flowers or the petals once I've got the wax in, and then just scratch that out before we do the faux patina. Okay, so now it's going to be on to the high relief, and it is coming in. Trace it onto on the front. I'm working on the front of the pewter, and I trace my circles. Now I'm going to turn around and I'm going to work on the back. And let me just add here, oh no, so you can see where the dot is, that is the back. If I'm working, and I'm going to go right just on the inside and retrace those lines. And it is going to pop. You can also use your ball and cup tool for this. Oh, see, I knew there was something I forgot. It's a paper stamp, and that's sort of, yeah, important, an important tool to mention. Okay. Yeah, so as I mentioned, you can also use a ball and cup tool for the centers, but I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to refine around. And this is not a specific flower. This is a fantasy flower in the sense that however it's going to look, that is how it's going to be. So what I would like to do is I'm just going to come in from the back, and I'm going to make little dots in there. And you can do that after the fact. Once you have the wax in, you can do it from the front as well, and then you will have the little indentations. But I think I would like to have it standing out, or a little bit embossed or bubbles. Okay, and I can actually go in a little bit wider on this one. And this is the thing, when you work, just go and double check always on the front to see if you are happy with how it turns out before you move on to the next step. Yep, I think this looks good. So I'm just going to come in, paper stamp, go around and refine, because then you will have that definite center of your flower. Okay. So I'm going to start with one of the petals. Or I'll do one of the flowers, and then from there I will just quickly do the rest, but it's very similar or the same as what it is there. I'm going to start with a petal, and I'm going to reline it or retrace it, go back onto my, I can actually do two opposite each other at the same time, but you never do two next to each other, because you can't define them so much or refine them. And come in just on the inside, retrace, and that one could have been a little bit closer to the edge. Onto your hard surface, refine around, and or flatten around, and then you're going to refine with your Teflon tip tool, or you can use your stylus at this point too. And from here you can decide how much higher you would like to go. I think I would like to go a little bit higher, so I'm just going to push this out. And again, what I'm doing now is I'm mimicking sort of, when you look at flowers, it has that little bit of a burst that is going out. So I'm doing that as well. I'm working towards the outside. So I'm just stretching it slightly. I don't want to do it too much because I don't want it too high. Come in, flatten around, and use my Teflon tip tool. So I think I am going to come in with my stylus as a final refiner. And then I will move on to the next step, or the next petal. You can also, when you do this, you can absolutely trace this or retrace this on the on your soft surface as well, or semi-soft surface. You don't necessarily have to do it on the paper pad, but I just always think on how high I would like to have it raised, and because I don't want this too much, my high relief too much, that is why I do my first one, or my first step, only on the paper pad. And turn around, the same as with the others. I'm going to flatten around. With the tip, come in with our Teflon tip tool. Refine, go back onto our semi-soft surface and use our paper stamp, and we are just giving a slightly bit more height. And again, we're working from the center out to the outside, or you can work from the outside to the inside, but don't work crossover because it's just going to look unnatural if there is mark makings that you are doing while doing the high relief, and it just goes in an unnatural way. Yep, that's good. And we're going to flatten around with our paper stamp and come in with our Teflon tip tool. And again, for a last go over, I'm going to come in with my metal stylus. And refine that. And as you can see there, can you see you have a very nice definition between your petals, where if you do them all next to each other, or when you do the high relief and you do them next to each other, you won't have that nice definition there. Okay, so also with the when I'm doing the petal, I think what I'm going to do is, before I push that out, I'm going to come in with my Teflon tip tool, and I'm just going to do the vein here. And this is what I was thinking. Now where did the wheel go? Oh, there you go. I'm just going to use this, the micro dotted wheel, and I'm running it right in the vein. It just gives it a little bit of texture. I'm not sure if you can pick it up on the video, because sometimes it's just really difficult to pick things up on the camera. Okay, so now we've already traced that, so we're going to come in on the semi-soft surface, and we are going to retrace it just on the inside. And this side too. Then we're going to come around and we are going to flatten with our paper pad, do our first refining here. And don't forget to go in there. So what I didn't mark as well, boy, I'm really forgetful today, really. So more or less this is where the cut off is. So I'm just doing it slightly there. Okay, this one's all okay. And that the reason for that is just where I'm going to bend it over, that there is not a lot of high relief or wax, that I have to struggle with the wax. So when I'm going to go to the back and I'm going to push out the leaf or pop the leaf or do the high relief on the leaf, I'm not going to go as high on this area here. And again, with the leaf, I'm working from the center or from the vein, and I'm popping it out to the outside. And this one I'll do at the same angle and just popping it out. I go a little bit over, but that's just so that I can see or get the right angle for this. And then we're going to come back in, whoops, and refine, or not refine, flatten with our paper stamp, and refine with our Teflon tip tool. So I know more or less this is where it is going to be, so I'm just going to go a little bit and flatten it there so that I know that is where the fold is going to be. So what I am going to do is I'm going to use, again, I'm going to come in with my the wheel, and very lightly I'm just going to make these little marks. It's almost like feathering, and I'm just slightly, very lightly, so you will have a little bit of texture there, but it's not going to be overwhelming or overpowering. And going to do exactly the same on the opposite side. And again, this is just to add some extra texture to your design. And I mean, you don't necessarily just have to do this on leaves. There's so many other different ways or other different designs that you can actually do this. There you go. It's very subtle, but it is there. I'm just going to go in one more time with this. And if you press a little bit harder, of course you will have more texture with this, but I just want that hint of texture to be there. Okay, so we refining, and where's my stylus? So for the last one, I'm just going to come in, and I'm actually going to use the opposite side now, and I'm just going to refine. So now we are going to go back to our petal, and we're going to finish our petal. So we're going to pop it out slightly again, and use our paper stump to flatten, our Teflon tip tool, and then we're going to come in with our stylus, and our flower is done, as well as our one leaf. So I'm going to do exactly the same for the other two flowers as well as the second leaf. While I'm waiting for the wax to warm up, I'm just going to place this down, and although I've already marked it, usually our pewter do stretch a little bit, but while we stretch the pewter through high relief, it also shrinks sometimes. I know it sounds so contradictory to each other, but that is actually what is happening. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my stylus, and I've just placed it, and now I am just tracing more or less where this is going to be, so that I can have an idea when I do go in with my wax. And now of course this is moved, so hold it tight, but this will just give you an indication, because again, I do not want to put wax where I'm going to have the marks, okay, which is, by the look of it, it is going to be more or less there. So I'm just flattening this out. And of course, I guess a better way to do that, or a different way to do that, is to make sure that you do not go in there and do the high relief there. It's just a matter of, and you can always really, if it comes to the point, you can actually scratch out the wax as well. It's nothing you do can't, well, I won't say nothing you do can't be fixed, but most of the things there is, if you just think a little bit, something might come up that is going to be able to fix it. Okay, so I'm just going to, and I'm doing this, I just want to have a smooth transition there. Fold it with wax on the back. And next I'm just going to come in with my stylus, and I'm going to add some accents to the flower petals. And it's just literally little scratch marks that you do. It's just to give it a little bit more definition as well. And if you haven't done the little bobbles, you could have come in now and did it as well after the fact. My wax is still not completely set at that point. Okay, and we're on the last one, and that one my wax wasn't completely set either. I'll just pop it in like that, and there you go. Okay, and I think we can move on to the background now. For the background, I'm going to use the 4 needlepoint tool, and I'm just going to make scratch marks crisscross. So I'm going to start off, the idea was I would like to start off more or less scratching this way, bringing it through, until this point. So now that I've got that mark, I'm just going to start, and I'm literally just scratching. So when you do these scratchings, you really have to be careful, because as you can see, you can actually damage your hard surface. So that's why when I do things like this, I always bring in an old one, and this is the one that I use that when I have wax on. So I know for a fact I'm not going to I wouldn't say definitely not, but most probably the chances that I'm going to use it as a hard surface is not very good, unless it is for something like this. So I'm just going to continue on scratching all over here. Let me finish this one here, and once this is completed, I'm going to go crisscross over, almost like a weave effect. And I'm going to scratch it that way, so that I can have that whole area, the crisscrosses. I didn't notice this as I was doing my waxing, but can you see there? It has that funny little blob mark that is there. And that is because on the back, I missed some wax there and I didn't see that. So I'm quickly going to try and scoop that off. Otherwise, it is going to make a permanent mark there. I did remove it, and well, there's still a layer, very thin layer, but it won't be as noticeable as what it was before. And what I use for that is I have one of these dental tools. One of my friends is hygienist, and whenever they throw the tools out, I mean, they collect them, and it comes in very handy when you are doing a whole lot of things. So I thought I'll just share with you how I got rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to continue on just scratching, and now I'm going to go or come in doing the crisscrossing, and I'm going in between the petals now. And I will see you once this is completed. I was thinking of maybe use the micro wheel over here where the definition was, or the separation of the two. But then I was thinking in the second thoughts was, no, I don't think I want to do that. So I'm going to add the Sookwang tape. And once that is done, we will quickly do the blackening, and then we can move on to the color. Come in with an alcohol swab, and I'm just quickly going to give it a once over to clean it. And give it a quick dry. And the next step is the faux patina or the blackening. And then I was thinking, you know, do I really want to use the black, or do I want to use the brown? And I've decided today I'm going to go with the brown rather than the black. So I'm just going to start coloring in. So it doesn't matter which color you use, it is just you need to do this before you add any other color like the alcohol inks to your project. So I got my piece of scrap sort of paper here, and it's a backing of a tape. so it's a smooth one, and I just put a drop down of the alcohol inks, and I'm using Meadow, and I'm going to pick it up. And so I'm just really want sort of a hint of color. I don't want it to be very overpowering. And just doing a very, very, very light layer of it onto the leaves. And once it's done, I will not come over it or to touch up, because then it is going to make a big mess, because alcohol resists alcohol. So that's it for the green or the leaves. And for the flowers, there's a tiny little bit that I've missed. And for the flowers, I'm going to use a sherbet pink. So I have this handy dandy thing that I've done, and you can actually pull this off the I think it's Ranger's website, where you can just add your dots in. So I'm going to use the pink sherbet, which is a very subtle pink, and I'm just quickly going to clean my paintbrush. Sometimes I don't even clean it in between, but just for the heck of it. I'll clean this one. I'll just drop some of the pink on there. And the same as with the, ooh, a hint of pink. This is actually very pink. But if you just put it on light, it doesn't need to be so overpowering. And I'm just moving this around as I am doing this. And there you can pick up how it resists each other if I go over it again. So best is, once you've got your alcohol ink down, don't go over it again. For the centers, I'm using a butterscotch. It is sort of a yellow brownish color, because I didn't want to go too bright with the centers. And I just dabbed a little bit on there. And now it is putting it all together. It's removing the backing of the Sookwang tape. And I think I've mentioned before, if I work with alcohol inks, I would not seal it immediately. I would give it a good 12 to about 24 hours before I would seal it. That is with a spray lacquer. Just out of experience, it can be very dotty if you do that, if you spray it before the time, because most of the spray sealers have alcohol, is alcohol based as well. So we're just putting this down, and let's hope it is, yeah, it's more or less across there. So I'm just going to bring in my cutting mat. And what we are going to do now is we are going to cut it basically a crisscross. So from the one end there, we're going to come across, oh, if you can go straight, that would be better, to the opposite side, as well as from there to the center, from that point to the center. And now you're just going to pop this in. And you're going to fold it over. And if you want to, you can cut those down. I might just trim it a little bit just for the sake, so not to have those really sharp edges. And this side too. But again, I mean, you can really just leave it as is. This one doesn't have much to cut, so I'm just going to leave it as is. And I'm just going to use the back of my paintbrush just because it was close. I guess in life there's a right tool for everything and then a convenient tool as well. And the back of the paintbrush was the convenient tool now. And just make sure that it goes down nicely. And you can turn it to the front as well. And just make sure that it adheres very well. And then I will come in and I'm just going to use I think I'll mark it so that I have something to start off with. And I'm going to use, there you can see the little bobbles that I've made, and I actually think I'm going to use another stylus that I have, and I'm just going to punch this through using the stylus. And so this is the holes where the screws is going to go through, and use the same stylus and just smooth it out so that it actually stick to the sides there. This one was a better go through than this one. And again, just come in and make sure that it is nice and round. Well, it's actually more rectangular than what it is round if you look at where the screws go in. And for the next step, it's the same as what we would do everything else. I might just, so it's going to be a straight line here. I can't decide if I want to go straight or, I think for this one I'm going to go straight, so I'm just going to overlap them. I can always change my mind later on if I want to, but for now I'm going to go in at 90 degrees and cut away my corners. And then it's just folding it over, and then we have to make a plan with the little screws to see which color we are going to do them. So I'm going to start with the long sides and going to go over and push it down. And I think I'm going to use another tool here. This is not the right tool. This one might work. Just see which tools you have handy that you can use that is going to work. So I'm going to do this to all four the sides, and just make sure that you really get it up close there to your electrical switch plate. So just make sure you get it straight up until that edge. Takes a little bit of time and, as I say, elbow grease, but in the end it is going to be worth your while to do that. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same with the other 3 sides as well. Now that everything has been covered and turned around, we're just going to come in and we are going to make sure that we do not have any sharp corners, because this is something that is going to have a lot of traffic, hand traffic, arm traffic, whatever you want to call traffic. So we definitely do not want any sharp edges. So I'm just coming in with my finishing tool and make sure that there is absolutely no sharp corners. So it's all in the details. Okay, just keep on feeling around, and now we have to make a decision on what we are going to do with our little screws. And when you look at that, it is really on the pink, mostly on the pink. So I would suggest, or my preference is to go in with the pink, which was the pink sherbet. And I'm just gonna come, ooh, that was a little bit too much for that little bit of for the 2 little screws, but I'm just gonna come and I'm going to do them pink as well. They will just blend in better than what you will have this 2 really white screws there, or screw heads I should say. The screws, you won't see them. Oh, come on, that doesn't want to come out. So now this one is going to resist most probably. So it's a little bit darker than what I wanted. That's perfectly fine. If you don't like it, you know what, you can always just wipe it off and you can redo it. Oh, that one is already dried, so that's fine. Just touch that up. This one just keep on being too dark for me. Okay, so there you go. And we are done. We started off with a blank slate, light switch cover, and we ended up having this beautiful subtle colors. So we did the high relief, and then we added some faux patina using the brown, as well as coloring with some alcohol inks. And you can do this bright colors too. You don't necessarily have to go the subtle colors. And even if you don't want to use colors, you can just actually do it in the pewter and just keep it the traditional, the black. And then we have cut through, as well as, you know, just make sure that we adhered it at the back, and all safe. We made the corners safe as well. So it doesn't matter which way you want to go, colorful or the traditional one. But look at your home if you want to try this and see what is going to fit the decor that you have in your home, and it can really make a nice just an accent in a room. So thank you so much for spending time with me in the studio today, and always remember, the world of reality has its limits, the world of imagination is boundless.